Hi, and welcome to Gilharmonic on Violinist.com. I'm Laurie Niles, founder and editor of Violinist.com, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Gil Shaham. Hi, everybody. Hi, Laurie. I'm coming from sunny New York City on a Sunday, and I'm thrilled. This hour is going to be life affirming. We have three amazing guests. We have three guests who are inspiring, uplifting, talented violinists. We are very lucky that they offered to share their time with us.
And I was so happy when Gil called me with the idea for this show. Gil, can you tell us what inspired you for this idea for the show?
Sure. So, look, the credit really goes to the headmaster at my kids' school. He's a super impressive guy. And as you can imagine, in March, he had to transition, nursery school and kindergarten and primary school and a middle school and a high school to virtual world, thousands of students, thousands of faculty. And yet at the same time, he started reading children's books online. And, many kids would tune in, and I would tune in, and my whole family would be tuning in because he was having a blast. And we were having a blast watching him. And I guess I thought, maybe I can try and make myself useful for a change. And, especially when everybody's summer plans suddenly changed, I thought it might be fun. And that's when I called you, Laurie.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do, you guys, is we're going to read Goodnight Moon. No, just kidding. What we're going to do, let's talk about what the Gilharmonic is. So,
Gilharmonic.
What is the Gilharmonic?
The Gilharmonic it's all of us hanging out together for an hour. You don't need to audition to be a member of the Gilharmonic. All are welcome, violinists, non-violinists, beginners, grandmaster, gurus, everybody's welcome. And I'm super psyched.
Yeah, and so what we've done, you guys, is we have planned an hour that's kind of a combination between a master class, sort of music appreciation, and then we also have three very special guests. We've got a young student from California named Joanne, and then we have KayCee Galano, who is a student at the University of Cincinnati College-Conservatory of Music, and then we have a very special guest, Jason Anick, who is a jazz violinist. And so we're really excited to bring everybody to you. So let's get ready to welcome this week's guests. And I'm going to turn it over to Gil to introduce our first one.
She's a budding young violinist from beautiful Southern California, and she's prepared a piece for us. Joanne Zhu. Take it away, Joanne. Wow. I love that. I love that performance. Joanne, that was amazing. I loved your playing. Let me see. As you were playing, I felt myself smiling. You know, when you were playing the violin, you made me happy, and you played so in tune. Every note was so beautifully in tune, nice intonation. Did you play double stops? You played
Yes.
double. You played
Yes.
double stops. And
Yes.
did you use vibrato? I thought you had. There was one note that you played such a beautiful vibrato. I thought if I played a vibrato like that today, I would feel very proud the rest of the day. And yeah, I loved your vibrato. And then I think you played a harmonic, right?
Mhm.
You played right. Let me see that part right where you go. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, with harmonics, I don't know if maybe you know this, but I'm gonna try to see if I can do this on the camera here. I think it's very interesting with harmonics because look, when you play them, I don't know if you can see the string is vibrating, right? The string is vibrating in front of your finger, but also it's vibrating behind your finger. I don't know if we can see that. Maybe if I do it on the G string.
Oh, I see it. Ah,
You can see that?
I can see it vibrating.
You see it, right? It vibrates in front of your finger and behind your finger, right? And when you usually play, it only vibrates in front of your finger. And anyway, I think harmonics are kind of magic. You know, maybe if we have time, we can do some harmonics later today. And Joanne, tell me, was there a piano there? Was there?
Yeah, there's a piano.
There's a piano.
A giant, shiny black piano.
Giant, shiny black piano. Because I also thought it was amazing because not only did you play, you were listening to the piano, right? You were adjusting and you were changing. You were listening to. I thought it was. You must have an excellent teacher.
So now I have to confess that I am Joanne's teacher. I can tell you why there was a piano playing, but there was actually no person at the piano. And that is because I had a pianist named Ben Salisbury make some piano tracks for our Zoom recital that was like a month ago, or maybe it was 2 months ago. I've lost track of time. And so it's really challenging to play not with a pianist who's following you, but to play with the track. Right,
You
Joanne?
were following the piano, right? So good.
The pianist was on the radio.
Exactly. Like you couldn't see him and he couldn't see you.
So good. And I loved watching your face while you were listening because you know what? You were feeling the music. And as I was listening to you and watching you, I was feeling it together with you.
Yeah. You know, one of the spots that we worked on really hard is the part that can be kind of boring is that part in the middle, you know, the part that goes, because there's no fast notes and there's no double stops and there's no cute like da 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 da. And so we talked about like a couple ways you could play it. And so there was this way that we could have played it, right? That's just. And then I said, well, Joanne, do you like this way or do you like this way better? And what did you think, Joanne? Yeah. Yeah. And what makes that one better?
When you have the vibrato and the long notes in the boring part.
The boring.
Is it as boring though? Maybe it's a little less boring, I'm hoping.
No, it's not boring when you do the vibrato.
Yeah. And then what else? How else did it sound to you when it was, you know, when we play it all?
It's like It feels like it puts thousands of babies to sleep.
Oh, I love that. That is beautiful. You know, I thought it was so great. And actually, when you played that part, I thought you really played it very beautifully. You know, there was another part that I was thinking of where now I don't really remember, but I think it sort of goes right. But I think it's a very sad part, right? It's just no, right. And then you have that low one, right? You have that B flat, you know, and then you change it. You take that first finger, you play it a little higher, you play a B. You take the B flat, you make it B, happy. You take a sad song, you make it happy. Right?
Yeah.
I love that. And actually, I think we should say thank you to the man who wrote this music for us, who was really, I think, a wonderful composer and a great violin teacher, Mr. Zeitz, right?
Wait, no.
No, not
Zeitz?
Zeitz.
I've always called it like the Sights Concerto. Am I?
Zeitz.
But am I could be totally wrong.
You know, when I was little, my teacher always called him Zeitz. But I may be wrong. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, but I think, you know what, Joanne? I wonder if you know the words major and minor. Do you know those words?
Yeah.
You know those, right? So when you play that, it's so sad. It's so sad. Do you know that is called minor?
Mm-hmm.
Can you say minor?
Minor.
When I was little, my teacher said, minor's sad, major's happy. So that one is minor. And then major. You know, I don't remember this music, so I'm just going to look here for a second. Do you want to play for us just that section there? Let's see. Where is it?
Well, from here.
What, Laurie? I'm sights reading.
Well,
I'm sights reading.
You don't need the music, do you, Joanne? Can you start there and play to the end?
Yeah. Can you play from and then play up to the end? Hooray! Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It was so fun to work with you. Next, we're very happy to introduce KayCee Galano. She just completed her sophomore year at the Cincinnati College-Conservatory of Music, and she is a student of Kurt Sassman's house. She's going to play Paganini Caprice number 21 for us. Take it away. Wow, that was so amazing. KayCee, we are so glad to have you playing for us, and I was so incredibly impressed by like the ease of your playing and your left hand, both hands, just so easy, and the vibrato that you have with your double stops. Wow. You know, I understand you've been a student of Kurt Sassman's house for a while, actually. Can you tell us how you guys met?
Yes, so we actually met in 2011 in his music festival in Beijing, China, called the Great Wall International Music Academy. And I was 10 years old at that time. And since then, we've been doing Skype lessons for about 5 years. And after that, when I was 14, 15 years old, I gradually moved to Cincinnati, got officially enrolled in the Starling program, the preparatory program here at CCM, and now I'm a junior at the school.
Wow, so you guys have actually been doing these online lessons longer than all the rest of us that just started with the pandemic. Well, something that I would really love to know more about is like this amazing up-O staccato that you have, and like, do you have any secrets? Do you have any like ways of practicing that up-O staccato that you can share that you have you worked on, or did it just kind of come naturally to you?
Oh, definitely not. It took a lot of work for sure. I first started putting the metronome on 60 and just working my way up through the metronome. I would play just the most difficult staccato parts and just focus on that like every day and just play like one note, one click, and then in tempo. But it always started at the slower tempo and gradually building my way up. And I did this for years, so it was not an easy task. It took me about 20 minutes a day. So just focusing on that part. I also did Kreutzer number 4. You know, since it was a staccato etude, I focused on that first before actually moving to Paganini 21.
Well, what does it look like when you do it slow? I mean, can you demonstrate like that? You know?
Sure. So if the metronome were at 60, I would just do one click, one note. And then after I did all of that, then I would do 2 notes per click. Like that. And then I would do it as written, but still at the slow tempo. And then I would slowly build my way up, getting faster.
Well, and KayCee, like, is there something that each click has to have?
I think just clarity of tone and just making sure that the wrist is relaxed and it's not too strained. I make sure that I don't go faster than I can. Yeah. It really took me a while to really get from like 126 to 132. Like that's not a really big difference, but it will take a while to get there. So I'm really glad that now I can do it.
I'm just glad to hear that, like, if you can't do it, it's possible to learn to do it with patience and persistence.
Yes, patience, consistency, that's all there is, yes.
Have you guys seen the video of Itzhak Perlman teaching staccato? Do you know that one?
I don't think I've seen that. Is that on masterclass.com?
Oh, I'm not sure. Have you seen it, Laurie?
I think there's one on YouTube, and he's with Jimmy Lin. Is that right?
Yeah, probably some people here watching have seen it, but you should definitely check it out. It's a wonderful moment. And Jimmy Lin, very young Jimmy Lin, is playing for Itzhak Perlman in a class, and he says, "Mr. Perlman, can you teach me to do a post staccato?" And Mr. Perlman says, "Well, I'll teach you how the great Itzhak, rest in peace, the great violinist Itzhak, how he would teach his students to do staccato." And he would look at them and he would say, "Put your bow on the string and don't play a note," And then you see Jimmy and he puts his bow on the string, and it's like, looks at him and he's like, "Go!" And he shocks him. And Jimmy launches this amazing flying staccato. It's like a rocket, It's so clean. It's so perfect. It's fast. It's beautiful. And then Mr. Perlman looks and he says, "How'd you do that?" It's one of the great moments. I think you'll enjoy it. I don't want to talk for too long, but I just want to say, after hearing your rendition of this caprice, I felt like I feel when I see like Nadia Comaneci finish her parallel bars routine. Do you know Nadia?
Yes. I've watched a couple of her YouTube videos.
I mean, I don't know, maybe Simone Biles sticking the vault, like does the routine, sticks the landing, the crowd goes wild, and the judges all hold up the 10. I thought it was really a remarkable rendition of that caprice.
Thank you so much.
If I were to add anything at all, if I were to try to add, I would ask you maybe to think, and I always say this, maybe to think a little more like an actor. I always think our jobs are very similar to the jobs of actors. We have to take what's on the page, and then we have to bring it to life for our audience. And Paganini was a great showman. And yes, that final tumble run, is sure to, be fireworks. But I wonder about the first part. Maybe he had some idea in mind with that. I love his marking, right?
Yes.
Right.
Amoroso.
Amorously. I love that marking, And I think sometimes Paganini's gift for melody isn't appreciated enough. I always think it's some Italian, it's like an Italian opera, like a beautiful aria. In this case, maybe it's not an aria, maybe it's a duet, right? You're playing like parallel sixths, and it's two voices singing together.
Yes.
And not only that, like the first time is the lower register, and then the same phrase, the same sentence is repeated at the higher register. And I always think music is all about metaphors. It's about what association are you making in your listeners' minds. And so, maybe you might want to consider the first sentence to be, like the low man's voice or the men's voice, and the second rendition, the higher woman's voice or the women's voice. And maybe it is sung differently. Maybe it's a and then it's a completely different character. Whatever it is, and then he does put in these interjections between each phrase.
He does.
I feel like those maybe are, foreshadowing the tumble run at the end, but also that's the Paganini.
Yes, definitely.
You played so beautifully, cleanly, and maybe that's, you don't even worry about that. It's just, it's like demonic chromatic.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you would consider maybe
definitely
that in the beginning.
That definitely gave me a really new perspective of the piece. Thank you.
Oh, you're too nice. You're too nice. I don't know how much time we have. I'd love to hear you play more. I'd love to. I know you would like to talk about other things. I don't know. So,
Do you want to try? Do you want to try that beginning?
Sure.
I love it.
Thank you.
you really make the violin sing. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
I know-
so much for joining us today, KayCee. This has been so wonderful to just hear your playing and your story. And
Oh, it's been such an honor. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
no.
inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. I know, KayCee, I know you wanted to ask something too.
Oh yes, I was very curious. What would it be like to have to pursue a violin career, and what would be the experiences or the challenges that come along in it?
Well, I don't really know the answer, but I do feel our lives are very similar to actors' lives. Maybe violinists have a slightly higher percentage, very low percentage of being gainfully employed. So, I think at your age, you want to be shooting arrows in all direction and hoping one sticks. I think actually we're very lucky because Laurie is an expert in the modern world, and she also knows many violinists and their careers. What do you think, Laurie?
well, I mean, I'll say this. You have a wonderful start. First of all, your playing is just beautiful. But then you also have like a very good website. And I would say, go visit KayCee's website because it's actually a really good example of what an artist should have. You've got your current pictures, you've got your social media channels, you've got your bio, you've got your dates on there. You're organized, girl. So, I think you've got a great start. You just keep going, just take every opportunity you have. And thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Bye. Stay safe.
You too.
Do. We are so pleased to have Jason Anick with us today. He is a Gypsy Jazz violinist, and he is a professor of violin at the Boston Berklee College of Music. I met him at Creative Strings Workshop with Chris Howes teaching improv. He is going to play us the first J-Tude, and we're going to tell you more about that later. And take it away, Jason.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. Bravo, Jason.
Thank you.
You know, when you were playing that, I'm thinking of this story. You know, I many years ago, I sat next to an older gentleman who was telling me about the time that he went to hear the great Fritz Kreisler play. And so I think we're talking about a concert that took place maybe 100 years ago, you know, but he went to this concert. He had this sort of idea in his head. He was like, well, I studied violin. Well, you know, what's so great about this fellow? You know, how, you know, what's good about Kreisler? And he said he sat there, and by the end of the first piece that Kreisler played, he realized everybody in the audience were tapping their toes, you know? So when you're playing, I was tapping my toes. I was like, this is great. I am loving this.
Oh, thank you.
I guess the other thing I was thinking is, I wish I could do that, you know? How come I can't do that? You know, I mean, I'm so curious. Please tell us, what was your path? How do you get to be who you are? How did you get started? How did you learn? Are you a jazz violinist? What do you call yourself? Tell us.
Oh, well, I really appreciate it. And I'm, of course, a huge fan of yours, Gil. So it's a real honor that, you know, you're taking the time to talk to me, and we can chat violin. So this means a lot. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you, Laurie.
Likewise.
So yeah, my path is kind of interesting. Like a lot of violinists, I started pretty young. I started when I was 5 years old. My dad, who is more of a fiddler, he's more of a fiddle player, bluegrass and some swing as well. He got me started pretty early on. And since 5, I was doing classical violin, but also learning fiddle through my dad. So I was learning by ear. I was learning these different rhythms and different kinds of melodies outside of classical. And so pretty early on, I was exposed to some variety of styles. By about 10 or 11, I was extremely curious about improvisation. My dad and I would just be jamming, and this whole idea of being able to, you know, really make up my own thing on the spot and be as creative as possible and have my own personality, all the things that, you know, I just felt like as an improviser I could delve into. I just got really curious about it. And so I was experimenting. I started writing pretty early on at about 10 or 11, writing music. Then then that took me a few years later to really fall in love with the jazz idiom itself. For 1 year, I only listened to Charlie Parker, believe it or not. I just got obsessed with the phrasing and the spontaneity that Charlie Parker had, and I wanted to emulate that on the violin. But meanwhile, I was always continuing my classical training. I was always a huge fan of the classical tradition and what it was doing for my violin playing and for the freedom it was giving me just to have the facility up and down the neck and just to know it inside and out. So I then decided to study at the College-Conservatory. I had a great classical teacher, but also was in the jazz department. So again, crossing over, trying to find myself comfortable in both worlds and seeing how they can benefit each other. And along the way, I really also got into Gypsy Jazz, which is a style that was pioneered by Django Reinhardt and the violinist Stefan Grappelli. So naturally, as an improvising violinist, a jazz player, I was really into Grappelli's playing, and he had a classical aesthetic to his playing as well, an elegance, a refinement that I hear in great classical players. So again, this style was kind of the perfect, the perfect style for me because it encompassed the kind of virtuosic elements that I loved in classical, but also the improvisation that I loved in jazz. So I really went on that path of trying to be like a gypsy jazz violinist. And right out of college, I started touring and traveling. I started playing with the John Jorgensen Quintet, which is one of the top American bands. And that kind of just launched my career from there. So to answer, what do I call myself? It's hard to know because I'm just as inspired by classical and playing classical music as I am with jazz, but I love improvising so much that I guess I'd probably have to lean towards the jazz because I can't imagine going through a concert and not having some element of surprise I just love that element of surprise, and it's something since, like I said, I was 10 or 11, I've just always loved that, and that's what kind of keeps me curious, it keeps me going.
So Jason, can you play us like an example of gypsy jazz maybe or something? Or
Sure.
Just so people know what it is, because I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so gypsy jazz, usually you have a guitar player playing what's called le pomp, which is this rhythmic groove, So a big part of the gypsy jazz sound comes from the guitars and then the violin soaring on top of it. So I don't have my guitar players with me, but I can give you a sense of the aesthetic. One of the most famous songs is Minor Swing. So I can do a little snippet of Minor Swing and just improvise a little bit in the style of gypsy jazz.
Man, I love it. I love it. Love that.
Thank you.
I love how you create moments, even in the first one, but also a little bit here. I was trying to read your facial expressions, and a couple of moments you flash a smile. It's like, oh, it's creating those moments. He's really living, living in the moment.
Gil, I was gonna say, I've always admired your playing. I mean, you're such an incredible musician, but you mentioned the facial expressions. When I watch you play, you also wear your feelings and your emotions and the phrasing. You also throw it into the facial expressions as well. And so as somebody who does that myself, I appreciate somebody who does that. And to me, I don't know how people keep a straight face playing music. I don't know how they do it.
It's so embarrassing for me to see myself playing because it's.
I love it. I love it.
Control.
I love it.
Can you tell us about J'etudes? Is the idea that, like, if I were to study my J'etudes,
Yes.
would I improve my chops?
Oh, I think the J'etudes would be fantastic for any classical player to study it. So a brief history of kind of where they came and how I got, you know, the title and so forth. So I was creating these small exercises for myself to kind of learn the fingerboard, think about chords, and to have new harmonic rhythmic vocabulary, right? And they were isolated exercises away from music. And so they were just foundational building exercises. For example, it might be something where you have to play a triad, 2 triads together, but you have to, meanwhile, you have to know at every point what chord you're on. So it's kind of aware what you're thinking about, what you're focusing on while you do it. So it might be like, of course, when people start doing it, they're thinking, okay, that's G, then F, then G, F. So the idea of kind of being able to allow your brain to process where you are in your fingerboard and how it relates to chords, which is something that isn't always given in classical pedagogy. We don't always think about, oh, these are these chords, this chord progression, this is voice leading, this is landing on the 3rd. But of course, who defined voice leading for us? Bach, genius of voice leading. And one of my favorite things is if you look at some of Bach's lines. So if you think about it, he was weaving through the harmonic fabric. So he had chords in his mind, and he could weave through it beautifully. So, you know, you have, and, you know, I love demonstrating, well, he was landing on the 3rd of the chords as he was doing it. So that kind of understanding, to me, it does help a jazz player, but it really also helps just anyone who really wants to know their fingerboard and wants to know how it relates to the chords and the harmony. It's just getting deeper into the music.
I do remember reading about Bach, and I'm forgetting where the quote was, but it stuck with me, where the writer said, with Bach, harmony and rhythm were the same thing. The harmony was the rhythm, and the rhythm was the harmony.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I want to get this book of etudes that you haven't written all of them yet, right? So how many have you written, and can you give us like a sneak peek? And maybe
Sure. So I just want to tie one more thread here. So I mentioned how I was first coming up with these smaller exercises, these triad pairs, or I was, you know, mixing and matching arpeggios, like fun stuff like that. And if you can get into that and see it as chords, you can have a lot of fun with it. But a lot of my students, and myself included, like some of my students would ask, so where do you use this? How does it fit into a composition? And so sometimes I could point, you know, this Korngold used this, or you know, I could point out some composers from classical and jazz that were using it. But I also thought it might be fun to write my own pieces using all these ideas that I have, and so that's where I started to decide I need to write 24 solo violin pieces and pair each one with some takeaway, whether the takeaway is a harmonic concept, rhythmic idea, maybe a stylistic idea, branching out into world music or jazz, or it could be a technical idea. And ultimately, I also wanted to have standalone pieces that are fun to both play and to listen to. So getting deeper, not just thinking, okay, this is a study, but ultimately how you can take all the things you are studying and mix it into a real musical statement. So that is what my goal is. I think I'm going to start by trying to write 12. I have about maybe 7 or 8 in my head because I usually fully compose them before I even write anything down.
Right.
And so what I'll do is I'll write a piece of it, maybe record it, listen back, make some adjustments, and then I'll finally put it to paper. And I think I only have 2.5 written down at this point, but I have about 8 that are in the works. That are in the works, but I gotta start writing them down because people want to play them. And
Right.
I think part of getting towards a book will having people trying to play them, give feedback. Hey, try this, or make sure you write in bowings here. Those kind of things would be really, really helpful.
That's cool.
So I have some players who are going to be diving into them. Actually, do you guys know Tessa Lark? Great violinist?
Yes, wonderful.
So I'm actually going to write her. I'm going to write one for her in mind. So
Cool.
Yeah. So
we're running out of time, but I wondered if you could send us off with about 30 seconds of another cool J-tune.
Sure.
Thank you for being with us, Jason.
Such a treat.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really feel honored that you asked me to be involved. So
We're so happy you were with us. Yeah.
And I look forward to getting to meet together in person down the road. So that will something to look forward to. Let's see. Oh man, how to decide?
Put you on the spot here.
I know. Let's see.
The muse. Let the muse strike.
Let the muse strike. So I have this one where I have been trying to. I wrote a whole section of the song based on the diminished scale. So all the world of harmony within that. And what it brought me to is something like this. So I'll do a little snippet of it.
Awesome, I love it. Thank you, Jason.
There's a lot more to it, but that's a little sample of just how I got curious about that one scale, and it's amazing what you can come up with when you dive into harmony and rhythm and explore. So,
thank you for helping us explore Gypsy Jazz, and we will. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the internet and be watching for these J-tunes. We're going to throw a party for them when they come out.
Awesome.
I can't wait to try and play them. Can't wait to hear you play again. Thank you. Thanks for sharing with us.
Yeah, until next time. Thank you guys so much.
That was so incredibly inspiring. And I'm telling you, I cannot wait until those etudes come out. J-tudes. I can't wait.
Incredible. Jason, he's from a slightly different world from me. He's so fluent in that language, and that kind of masterful shredding. It just makes me want to hear more of him. I want to spend more time in that world.
And I've just been inspired by everybody today. KayCee, I love the fact that she was describing how you can actually learn how to do uppo staccato, because it seems like it's just something that people say bam, go. But to know that it's something you can work on and really get that good at, it's just a big inspiration for me.
And she has such a wonderful attitude, someone with those kind of chops it's just a treat to hear that.
Yeah, and I was thrilled that Joanne got to join us today.
Yeah, Joanne. Yes, she's so joyous and she's so joyful and she's so clear-sighted right? Her thinking is so clear. There's so much to learn from her. It's really a privilege to be with her. You know, Laurie, it occurred to me just now that the 3 selections that we heard, besides being wonderful music on their own, they all share an extra dimension. You know, the caprices and the J-tudes and the Zeitz concertos. They all were written sort of by older violinists. It's almost as pedagogy for younger violinists. And I think that's a very heartening feeling. You know, what we're dealing here is with a very old art. This is a very old art form. And this going from generation to generation, passing on the music, passing on the knowledge. I love that.
Well, and not only is it an old art, but it's growing, as we can see. I mean, day by day, you know, with Jason doing things like adding to the repertoire. I mean, it's just like this connection between the old and the new.
Really, it makes me think of my teachers and how lucky I was. Yeah, and we're yeah. You know, I loved this hour. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. I really felt like I was at home.
You know, Gil, you are at home.
Yeah.
We're all at home. I'm at home. Everybody's at home. So, you know, what do you say we come back next week? Same time, same place. Let's do it again.
Very much looking forward. Thanks to Robert Niles for his amazing tech and helping us out. Thanks to our 3 guests. Thanks to you, Laurie. Thanks for doing this with me. We'll see everybody next week. Same place, same time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.